Welcome to Inside Scoop with Sean Emory. Every week we are examining something new, bringing you closer to companies, sectors, and themes. This recording should not be construed as a substitute for personalized individual advice from Avery & Company or any guest on the show. This is for educational purposes only and not intended to make an offer or solicitation for any companies or securities mentioned. With that, let's get on with the episode. All right, we are here. Philip Lakin, founder of No Code Ops.
Hey, man.
What's up, man? Yeah, I haven't spoken to you in a year, I think.
A lot has changed.
A lot has changed. You know, you look happy. It looks like you're at the end of what I think is a beta.
Yeah.
And launching, something into the wilderness. So definitely want to learn more about that. A lot of people, if you didn't listen to him a year ago, clearly, I've subscribed to his newsletter, No Code, right? Which is just learning more about, some of the no code products that exist out there. I think that's ultimately what drove you to this spot to even launch, the platform you're launching today. But in general, I'll step back for a second before even just having you reintroduce yourself briefly for those that didn't get a chance to listen to you last time, and go listen to that if you didn't. But, at Avery, we think no code is really foundational, to the future of building and shipping, software more broadly. And for those that don't really, no code is just kind of a buzz term, but, I think it actually makes a lot of sense. It's pretty straightforward, but it's, software engineers having none of them, or software engineers that are essentially building tools that are plug and play to build, software tools. So think of like Wix.com where you're building a website, not necessarily, knowing how to, code, right? Yep. So that's the very, elementary school way of, trying to go through it, but it's ultimately what it is. Would you agree with, the opportunity set for no code is large, Philip? And, talk to us about where you are from a year ago and elevator pitch and all that good stuff.
Yeah, man. Love it. Thanks for having me. And some things have changed since a year ago. This small little startup OpenAI really came out and did some stuff. Yeah. We've launched our beta actually today, which is crazy. Definitely both
today
scale. Today's the beta launch. So yeah.
Oh, what timing? I knew
Good
it.
timing.
Yeah.
You nailed it.
Jeez.
So to just kind of give like some context for those, hadn't heard kind of like the last show that we did. I've got a bit of a weird background by the way of tech, in that I was an actor before I was in tech, and did a ton of stuff like from Law & Order and Gossip Girl to films in Cannes and Tribeca Film Festival. And I was a super mediocre waiter when I was an actor living in New York. So I found a lot of joy in just like guerrilla marketing and promotions, which led to me starting a company, which led to us getting acquired, which led to me being the guy at the company to figure out no code stuff because I was super non-technical, and then got headhunted at Compass, a real estate tech company, to do some similar stuff with no code there. And then when I found out no code was a term, I got really jazzed because I was like, oh my gosh, there's other people like me doing and thinking about this stuff. And they actually want to talk to each other about it. Because when you're the sole no code in your company, no one wants to talk to you about it. Because like the devs are like, it's not code. And the business people are like, just give me my metrics and deliver what I care about. No one wants to nerd out on process with you. And so I found the other me's and I got really jazzed, but then kind of let down because most of the folks at the time were talking about no code from the standpoint of using it for MVPs and, being a founder and using it for like micro SaaS and indie hacking stuff, and not necessarily like hardcore operational internal stuff like sales ops, marketing ops, people ops. And so that's where I created the newsletter. Newsletter is now over 10,000 folks, and it turned into our community, which is over 900 vetted no code operations professionals from all over the world on Discord. We host events every week. And then we also in the background have been not so quietly, but in the background building Operator for the past 2.5 years. And so here we are.
Yeah. Who just joined your community?
So Wade Foster, the CEO of Zapier, just joined the community. Yeah. And what's been cool is he's been a supporter since day one, which has been incredible. He's actually an early investor in us. Nice. I met him at South by Southwest, and we kicked it and just had a really good jam, and became an investor and stayed really close to us ever since. And we formally joined the community the other day and basically hosted an AMA in our community. It was just great. Everyone's really excited to see him there. Yeah,
Zapier, is like the everything automation and no code.
Yeah,
it's
they're the OGs.
It's the glue.
They are the glue of the modern day operation stack. And so in terms of like how I, enough about like, me and kind of like how I got here, right? Like how I see the market and like what's going on, I think today, some of your early question, like we hit a plateau, where's no code? Look, the reality is no code's been around for a very long time.
I think I asked you, hold on, just for the audience. I think I asked you that question without the recording. So I'm going to frame it, right? So just to make sure everyone, I think we were talking offline.
This is our pre-chat.
So pre-chat question. I literally asked him was, and this is what we're thinking, as you are, so no code has been here for a while. It's been, a while. Like Wix is a very, it's not an old company, but it's, it's been around for a while. And that's, for me personally, in terms of my, foray into no code, this was the one, like that aha moment where you're like, oh wow, I can design a website from scratch without having to know a lot of code, or if any at all. Anyways, and the question was really around, have we reached the type of products that are incorporating no code part of that stack, or are there net new ideas and types of no code building blocks that you envision that are on the horizon? Or is this that maturity phase where we've seen a lot of 95% of what is likely possible in the no code space, and now we're just absorbing it and creating tools using no code as the foundational building blocks? That's the question.
And my my response to it in short is we are just getting started.
Wow.
It is a long road ahead of us, and it's very exciting. And the reason I say that is because, first of all, yes, it's, the mainstream of no code really started with, it started in spreadsheets, but then it really, grew into like, okay, I can build a website without knowing how to code with Wix and Weebly and Squarespace. But then it became about apps with things like Bubble and integrations with things like, things like Zapier and Make. And then it became about databases with things like Airtable and Smart Suite, right? And it grew and grew and grew and grew to all these different areas, and RPA and security stuff. Like there's so many different areas. No code is like this adjective where it's like there is no code ways to do several things that you used to have to do with code. Everything from like BI and analytics all the way up through operations and sales management and CRM management and all this stuff. And so the reason I say that we are just getting started is because no code, it's a bit reductive even for its own industry name, because yes, it is no code. There is no code happening, but the way in which you present something to a user to build, manage, maintain, do the kind of full life cycle of software without knowing how to code is a very much evolving field on how to do it better. And I'll give you a great example, right? So many people were like, okay, and the next kind of version of no code front end website builders, Webflow. Webflow comes out, people use it, people are like, oh my God, this is it. This is the ticket. It's no code, but it's super extensible, really customizable and powerful, right? And then they start building more and more for power users, and then new people come in, they're like, even though this is no code, this is like a big learning curve. Like this is a lot to look at in the back end of a Webflow site. Okay, so everyone's like, all right, well, Webflow won that debate. Let's move on. But then Framer comes out and just annihilates speed. Like they just go so fast in terms of picking up new users, because yes, the end result is the same as the website, the front end website that you would get with Webflow. But the way they approach how you build it, how you manage it, how you maintain it, how they visually represent things, what to hide, what not to hide from users, like those are all decisions that shouldn't be taken for granted. It's the same reason why new coding languages are produced all the time, and we just haven't said, all right, we're good with JavaScript, just kind of like leave it alone, right? So it's the same thing. It's just a different way of expressing it.
Got it. And so you think there's still long roadmap here?
Oh yeah.
Obviously, you've placed bets here. No Code Ops, which is the company. I'll bring that up here just for the sake of people. Again, today I guess is the beta launch.
Yeah.
Tell us what you're doing exactly.
Yeah. So
that may give us a sense of and some of the tools and products, just like for the person that doesn't know exactly, hopefully they do. If you're, in the investment world and totally care about anything related to technology, you probably heard of these, but
I'll take it.
But if you haven't,
so if you want to share that screen again, what I can do is and click out of here and just go to operator platform as like the homepage or
you see, I wish this was a live image.
Oh, you're good. Oh, this is your okay. Yeah. All good.
Pre-planned.
I like that you even planned this. Okay, so TLDR, right? So you can leave this, totally fine. With Operator, what we found right over like the past, call it 2.5 years now of talking to over 300 operations professionals, we found that all these people that were handling massive amounts of operations and automations at their company were struggling, and not because they couldn't set up the automations. They could set them up. They use Zapier to set these things up. The problem is that this is the typical story that we heard. Someone on the ops team has a need that the devs can't solve for or won't solve for because there's not enough roadmap, and it's the problem they're trying to solve for is too internal facing to get on the devs roadmap. So they look for stuff to do it on their own. They can't find off-the-shelf software. So then here we go. Ta-da! So they end up finding something like Zapier to make a connection and build a workflow, and they do it. And they've nailed it. And everyone's really excited at the company. But then everyone goes, well, I don't want to ask IT or devs to anymore. I'm just going to go ask Phil to do it. He knows how to do this stuff with like his no-code thing. So then people ask you more and more to do stuff. And then if you click onto operator platform, what ends up happening is these things get so complex and there's so many of them and so many people involved in them that what we found is so many operations professionals ended up, even though they were using a tool like Zapier, mapping manually every single automation they had into some kind of spreadsheet that looked like this. And it would take hours to maintain and update and keep up to date. It's all manually done. So what we did was we said, hey, could we plug into your tools, automatically map this for you and keep it synced, add rules and alerts to it, give you a unified change log, automatically generate some documentation with GPT, and allow you to set alerts on stuff. So like, let's take an example, right? Like, let's say I built a Zap that is triggered from an Airtable status change. If you delete that Airtable status as a field, or if you remove that actual that option in the field, the Zap is never going to get triggered. It's just silent failure. With Operator, we would let you know that someone messed with something and who it was and when that was related to your automation that you care about. And so we're proactively protecting all of the hard work that you've done while keeping everything automatically logged and documented. And so that was the goal. And so we've built it starting with Airtable and Zapier. Soon we'll be adding Make and Airtable automations, and then HubSpot and HubSpot workflows.
So this is observability over your quasi automation / no code stack.
Yes, exactly.
For governance, administrative, observability. Think of like PagerDuty on, for your
you got it.
Coding in the background, right? Cool. Nice. It definitely makes a lot of sense. I mean, we use a lot of no code stuff in general internally, whether it's, Notion pushing out to here or, from time to time, Monday.com and, all these like data place, exposed database platforms that exist out there. Now, what are you seeing, in no code that, let's say over the last, couple months, because I think it's a pretty interesting time in this space, to say the least. And I kind of said that a year ago, and I could have said that 3 years ago.
Now it's really interesting.
yeah, for sure. So like, what are you seeing out there? Like, what have you seen a certain type of products that have been built with this as the foundation? And if so, like, what are some of the cooler ones that you've seen?
Yeah. So a couple of cool trends I'm seeing in the no code world. One, AI is coming into the game hot, right? So everything from like, I think it's like a Magica where you can straight up just like type something and get an app, like a full out web app, all the way to AI being directly incorporated into the no code application. So one really nerdy use case that I love is like Zapier. If you, in the past, you'd like click on an errored step in Zapier, like something errored out, and it would just give you a bunch of gobbledygook that you would understand. Now you just press a button and it uses AI to say, this is what you should be looking at. And like, that is awesome. That is so good. And so there's things like that are really interesting. Like, we've brought AI into our stack already, but with like automatic documentation stuff. So the way it's being brought in different capacities, different features of apps, and being used as like the whole app itself, I think is really interesting. And I think, quite frankly, we're going to a world where some automations are just going to be built and managed with AI, right? You're going to say, write me a Lambda function, or just, read these 2 pieces of documentation and write me, the API. Like, this stuff's going to be built into Postman. Like it's just going to be everywhere. And so I find that really exciting. The other trend that I'm getting really jazzed about in the no-code world is now that we've got all these generalist tools that work, right? So like, Zapier can work with like it's like the most connected integrator, and, Airtable is like the most connected, let's call it like spreadsheet meets database, where you can build apps on. What I find so interesting is like the further opinionated version of all these tools that are being very successful, and kind of like that unbundling, I find so interesting. So perfect example is, look, we love Airtable. Obviously, we eat our own dog food. I built our first CRM in public on Airtable and Zapier. But then when I came across Adio, I said, bingo, like we're switching. Even to my own detriment, right? Like we don't even integrate with them yet, but like I need to use it. And Adio is so interesting because it's ATTIO. They are basically saying we are Airtable, but as if it was opinionated from day one to be a CRM. So we do enrichment off the bat. You can hook in your emails and we show those as an activity log. We bring in your calendar events. You have all the flexibility you have in Airtable, but with like real objects that are opinionated, like as if they were coming from a CRM. They just raised like a Series A from Redpoint. I love the team. They're killing it. And like, huge fan. Like if you're an investor listening and you can beg them to get on their cap table, I would highly recommend it. Like they're incredible. And so that's the stuff that I'm so interested in, is like, now that there's like this broad brushstroke of no-code tools out there, what are the more opinionated things that, the other platform is never going to really work on to that level? Because they have more general.
So you have like you have these horizontal kind of platforms that started, really trying to find, call it product market fit, like fit.
Yep.
And then, you're getting these vertical approaches, which is, Adio in CRM.
Right. And they're not necessarily vertical by the industry as much as the use case, which is so interesting.
Right. It's like human capital management, HCM, CRM, and maybe others. There's obviously Monday, right? So Monday started off very horizontal, but like, it kind of lean CRM. And then they, I don't know if you follow like the financial story, but they've really, and they spun out of, quasi spun out of Wix, which was interesting.
Mm-hmm. And they were the Pulse first.
Yeah.
So random.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, like, their product is elegant. It's beautiful.
Amazing.
And, but they've kind of, not industry vertical again, but vertical in terms of their CRM
product. They're project management and CRM, but I even think of them as like project management, like with a CRM twist, like you can use it for CRM, but like at the end of the day, it was built to be a project management tool in the vein of like Asana and Reich, and, and it can be used just like those other tools can be used as CRM. And I think they've got some really good features on that front. But like exactly the same thing, like they are giving you the flexibility of Airtable, but from day one, they were like, when they started the box structure, right, in the grid, it's like, but we're really a project management tool.
Yeah. No, but again, to further the point was they last, or somewhat recently, they launched Monday CRM, which was, an out of the box CRM, and it's taking off. And then they just started their dev tool, which is supposed to compete against like, the Jiras of the world. And apparently that's catching fire as well. So you're getting,
this goes to show you.
Horizontal starting to
tools in my own category. There's so much going on.
All right, yeah, no, there's some that makes some sense then, that what's going on in the space. That's so cool. But I'll definitely check out Adio. They raised Series A 23.5 million from Redpoint. So obviously something's going right. And then the biggest advocate of Airtable for a long time made that switch. So which is pretty interesting.
We're still using Airtable a ton for different projects, and like we have a job board that we're about to migrate all into Airtable, right? That we're all doing manually right now. We're like, we get no-code jobs from the community for our community. And like, there's stuff like that that's always going to live on Airtable. Like a lot of our community management's still on Airtable and it'll stay there. But just for a straight CRM, it just makes so much more sense.
Yeah. I mean, look, CRM has one purpose, walk someone through a funnel or something, or a company or whatever it is, and, have the tools. And sometimes that's the thing, is sometimes these highly flexible tools, and I'd love to get your opinion on it, like a Notion, in some ways it's too flexible, where, that 100%. Flexibility creates, this mind stop where, you go down this swamp of idea.
I get that all the time, man.
Yeah. And then you're like, just give me a CRM in a box.
Yeah. And so that's like the hard thing that these companies are trying to adjust for, right? It's like, how flexible do you make something? How white, just like space or blank canvas do you give it? And like, that's the other problem with no code in some ways. And it's the same problem that coders face. It's like, just because you can do it doesn't mean you should, right? So I was talking to a no coder the other day who's developing a solution for a client for order management. And he was, he's like, can I ask you your opinion on the stack? So he was walking me through this whole thing and like how he's going to use Airtable and Airtable forms and do this, and that, and make it work in all these ways. Have like a portal through maybe something like Softer, like on the front end. And I was like, listen, The reality is you could totally make all of this work and it would work. But the amount of custom work you're going to do that you then have to manually manage and maintain is going to be absurd. Like you should really just use something like a Next Matter or a Process Street or
that's
who's the one I recommended
right
to him? Pipefy, something that is built to run a process with multiple interfaces for different users along the way that gives you an admin panel, because then you have to build all that stuff from scratch and maintain it, where these other systems are just built to do it with high customizability. And so my thing as a no-coder is I'm always trying to think to myself, where can I get rid of work for myself? Like, just because I can customize it, do I really need to?
Sure.
And that's where I think, it's a good lens to look at stuff through.
Yeah, a little bit more out of the box. Now, talk about some of the other, the big ones, right? The Microsofts of the world, the Googles of the world. Who else? I mean, those two really.
They're all thinking about it.
Yeah,
they're all thinking about no code or buying stuff in no code, and like, look, Microsoft's invested a ton in Power Apps, right? And and Power Automate, which is like their own internal version of Zapier that comes with Microsoft 365. It's very, very powerful. Google's, made investments, like bought, things like AppSheet. And I know at one point they were experimenting with something called, I think it was called Tables. It was like their own version of Airtable that was through their like lab kind of division. I can't remember.
It's like Flex now.
Yeah, something like that. But now they're incorporating a lot of those features like smart chips directly into Google Sheets, which is interesting. Amazon was messing with Honeycomb for a while, which was like or Honeycode, I think, which was their version of like a no-code tool. So they're all thinking about it.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Definitely all thinking about it, which again says where we are in the journey. And one from an offensive but also defensive standpoint when you look at them. And anytime they're getting defensive, I think that says a little bit about the potential opportunity there, because the reality with all this stuff is, this, because it's software, because it's somewhat agnostic to industry and sometimes verticals, these things can occupy and start to move into other categories pretty relentless. And the incumbents are at risk of somebody starting here small and beginning to create waves of
100%.
User adoption.
100%. But you know what? I always get the question of like, is this going to take the job of developers? Like, where is this taking stuff away from? And like, the reality is, it's just a whole new white space that's being occupied and created. Because what's happening is a lot of these apps internally for ops teams were all just done on spreadsheets, terribly. So, and so what's happening is now they're becoming real applications that have like, versions and governance and, work with larger and broader systems outside of themselves through integrations. And so like, it's just like this whole new space of what was living in spreadsheets or in people's heads are like, oh no, I could create a real app here now.
Right. Yeah. Pivoting real quick is I did want to, just for listeners understanding, you've been, building this company, No Code Ops. Really, again, what we just showed was the governance / observability of all your no code solutions. Just talk about that journey. Some of the challenges that you faced thus far, and to get to this point where you're launching a beta right now. You're backed by arguably the most, backed by arguably the glue of no code. And just talk about some of that journey for us.
Well, first of all, the gray hairs in my beard and the wrinkles on my forehead didn't come from nowhere.
I don't think. Let's bring up a picture of you. No, I'm just kidding. But
look, it's been a journey, man. Being a founder of like early stage B2B SaaS has both been the most challenging and the most rewarding part of my career to date. Building a team, we started out by saying to our early investors, we have a community that we're building and they're really sticky and we love their problems. And, we don't know what we're going to build and hope that's cool with you. And they were like, you know what it is.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. And so that's where like Lucy and Dave from Backend and some like early folks like from alumni and Nick Abzayed, like all these like amazing early believers in us, like really just leaned in. They were like, we don't know what these guys are going to do, but like we're pumped for it because they're so close to their audience and they're starting to think about distribution from day one. And then, we started tinkering with stuff and, we first thought, hey, look, observability compliance, like infra tools and no code tools are two very big categories. And so it's like, where do you start? You just got to kind of start somewhere. And so you did a lot of customer interviews, but customers aren't going to tell you what they need. And the challenge for us was our customers didn't have the language to ask for what they needed. So like we had to invent it alongside of them and work with them. And so I kid you not, like, you know, we started out with just like error monitoring for Zapier and Make, and then it evolved into something that was between that and what operators say. And then it evolved into operator, what it is today in terms of automation management is like the core of it and how that relates to all the apps it's connected to. But to get to that journey, man, like I said, I'm kidding you not. It took a year and a half of talking to the same people to find out that half of them had this secret spreadsheet they weren't telling us about. And like, we were so close with these people and like, no one would bring it up. Like
Right.
when we found that spreadsheet, man, and then we found that other people started having it too. And they just like, because they didn't even know that, like when we were talking about observability, it's like, what does that even mean? It's like, we had to like start from scratch. I'm like, what do you do when an automation goes wrong? How do you keep track of things? Where do you document things? You know, to ask the right questions, to get the answers and like to find patterns, like it took a long time, man. It took a long time. And then when we did, things started clicking, but only because we had also dug our hands in the research and learn the language of the customer really, really well. And like, look, we weren't, you know, like we didn't just go to market like super fast with something and iterate quickly. Like it took a long time because all these features really needed to work together. So like we spent a long time in the weeds of R&D, and I'm glad that we did.
Yeah. And then talk about talent, attracting talent. Obviously, you know,
Yeah.
I think you probably saw a really hard market a year and a half ago. And then all of a sudden, you know, in the last 6-12 months, I'm assuming you know, you've had a lot of talent potential, you know, out there.
There's a lot of talent out there now for sure. I know it. Like, you know, for better or for worse, right? Hard markets cause this stuff. But, you know, we were looking, the market was tight, man. And like, one thing that we did in terms of talent, look, I give you the full playbook. One, having the community was incredible, right? So like some people just came straight out of our community because they really believed in our mission. But like, I was really, you know, I heard someone say to me early on in my journey that your job as a founder is to, you know, set the vision, get and retain talent, you know, sell equity, right? Like, and I really
took lowest possible price.
Yeah, the lowest possible price. Like, and I took that to heart, and like, I made it a part of my job every week, even when we were early, to like just search for talent and start conversations with people, and like that's what led to our, you know, early hires for us, and like, you know, asking people in my network, who do you think I should meet that like should be a part of this company? Like stuff, just like just like taking open meetings with talent that we weren't even ready for yet, right? Just having conversations. I think that was helpful. Our community was helpful. And then honestly, man, for the tech side, just hired a really good external technical recruiter. Like all the other stuff that we had, people were really jazzed about, and it really helped with retention and like going from offer to accepted. You know, so that was very helpful. But like, we just needed someone to just like take that off our plate and just like get us good candidates in the door. But you know what? One thing I got a lot of crap for early was like being only 9 people and having like a head of people this early. And you know what? Still one of the best decisions I ever made on the talent front. Like I would tell any founder to do the same. It's that worth it. It's so good.
To make sure everyone's happy while you work on, you know,
it's that she keeps me in check on a lot of things. Like she
smile more, Philip.
Yeah, well, oh, dude, because I wish it was that simple, right? Here's where that communication strategy might not have worked for you and achieve the optimal result. But even like just working one-on-one with folks on like personal development, like while, you know, Brett and I are so in the weeds, right? You know, helping organize like everything from our offsites to compliance to just all these things, you know, and she's a beast. She does like all, you know, so many different areas for us. But like having her full time and someone who's like not outsourced, but really cares about the company and the mission and where we're going and wants to grow with the company was massive. And by the way, every single technical person we hired, one of the reasons they said they accepted was because we had an HR person this early.
Oh, wow. Who are you looking for right now? Maybe someone listening. You're like,
so we are.
Let me go to my Airtable real fast.
Yeah. So, you know, I think that the next role we'll probably hire for in between now and Series A at some point will be like a BDR, like SDR role to come on and be a part of the sales cycle. We've built a really good machine on this front, which we're jazzed about. But you know, my goal now is to move from, because I'm doing both BDR, SDR work in the systems, and you know, because I love warm, but I'm obsessed with cold. And so we always been a part of our stack since day one. And so I want to move more into just like squarely being the AE in every deal at this point, and then having someone BDR, SDR, and qualify.
Sick. Cool, man. Well, I think we shall end there.
Yeah.
We're running up on the time.
This was amazing. I always love talking with you.
Same here. You're in Atlanta. I'm in Miami. Anyone out there listening in any of these, territories, sign up for his newsletter, sign up for his beta, sign up for, you need a job if you're a BDR.
Come on out. And then, we're hosting a huge conference, dates to be announced in May of this, of 2024 in Atlanta.
Is it virtual or in Atlanta? Cool.
In real life, man.
In real life. Oh, cool. Awesome, man. Well, good stuff. They know where to find you. Google search his name and you'll find him pretty quickly. With that, we'll exit this stage. Man. All right, man. Good stuff.